to remember them. My favorite meme of the week, of course, we will remember January 6th. We will never forget, but not for the reason that they want you to remember January 6th. Check out those gas prices. These are authentic.
Oh my gosh.
Under $2 regular on January 6th, 2021. Yeah, remember, never forget. Okay, well, it is a rare show that we don't have hoax hate or just something I've shoehorned to be hoax hate, even if it's not quite something of similar theme. This week, though, I just didn't have any true hate hoaxes that I thought were worthwhile. And there were plenty of stories of similar exaggerations or distortions, but they're not, in fact, hoaxes or likely hoaxes. Okay, so it always breaks my heart, but to maintain the integrity of the show in the intro, I will not play it.
Oh.
It is not the hoax hate crime of the week. Let's call these stories the exaggerated or fabricated hate of the week. I mentioned this earlier. Maybe this story is absurd enough to get you mildly interested in football, because it really has nothing to do with football. But early in the week, Jack Del Rio, the defensive coordinator of the newly renamed Washington Commanders, formerly the Redskins, now they're the Commanders, which itself is a problem because it refers to George Washington, who of course held slaves. So start the clock on when we have to change the name again. Well, Del Rio responded on Twitter to another user about the January 6th committee hearing. And Del Rio asked, well, why aren't we talking about the summer of riots the summer prior? You know, with all the looting and the burning and the destruction of personal property, that's never discussed. Why is this discussed? He asked in that reply. And then a reporter asked him Wednesday to elaborate. And on the microphone, Jack Del Rio said much the same thing. I'm just asking questions respectfully. This is America. I ought to be free to do that.
I'm just expressing myself. And I think we all as Americans have the right to express ourselves, especially if you're being respectful. What did I ask? A simple question. I see the images on TV. People's livelihoods are being destroyed. Businesses are being burned down. No problem. And then we have a dust-up at the Capitol. Well, there's nothing burned down. And we're not going to talk about, we're going to make that a major deal. I just think it's kind of two standards. And if we apply the same standard and we're going to be reasonable with each other, let's have a discussion. That's all it was. Let's have a discussion. We're Americans. Let's talk it through.
Oh, but you can't do that. We can't.
That was so innocuous.
Yeah, it's completely benign, factual, but his flaw is twofold. Number one, appealing to people's ability to have a rational, fair-minded discussion. Number two, he called January 6th a dust-up. I actually should have asked you what the offensive part of that was. And it's the fact,
is he just downplaying it? Is that why?
Yeah, it's the fact that he called January 6th a dust-up. That is what really sent this.
I don't even know what that means. That's what an old man would say.
I think it means like when I think of a dust up, I think of like a schoolyard fight or something like that, you know?
Yeah, it was less than that.
It's probably a better technical definition, but you know, a scuffle, that kind of thing. So the forces that be got him for that one. By Wednesday afternoon, Del Rio was already apologizing. And,
come on, man.
He gave one of those like, reading off the terrorist paper type statements. He says, referencing that situation as a dust-up was irresponsible and negligent, and I am sorry. And of course, that wasn't good enough. By Friday, head coach Ron Rivera issued a statement saying January 6th was domestic terrorism. And the statement reads in part, Del Rio does have the right to voice his opinion as a citizen of the United States, and it most certainly is his constitutional right to do so. However, words have consequences, and his words hurt a lot of people in our community. So the team, Coach Rivera and the team, fined Jack Del Rio $100,000 to be donated to the Capitol Police Memorial Fund. And Jack Del Rio has now deleted his Twitter account in response. I'm not sure if he did that voluntarily or if he was made to do that. But if you know that whatever you tweet could cost you $100,000 on a moment's notice, you probably decide not worth it. I guess I'm just not going to do this.
Good Lord.
And a lot of people talk about, say Colin Kaepernick or other event. Well, you didn't. How can you support this guy speaking when you didn't like Colin Kaepernick kneeling for Black Lives Matter, whatever? Granted, I would prefer that football and really all sports and other forms of entertainment just remain an entertainment platform that really has nothing to do with politics. I would like it to be politically free, including politics I agree with. But again, they destroy the standards, and then they're mad when other people violate those standards that they themselves destroyed.
Right.
So, for example, here, the statement from the Washington Commanders. Look at the team's logo in the top right. It's pride flag over their W. Mm-hmm. It's, again, political propagandizing. Every football game has nonsense Black Lives Matter messaging in the end zone and on the backs of the helmets. And to Del Rio's point, we're going to sit here and act like it's okay to promote that when it ruined businesses and government buildings and all sorts of infrastructure to the tune of $1 billion in damage. And they say, well, he says in the statement, the Capitol riot cost lives. First of all, no, it didn't directly. The only life directly lost.
Well, you guys killed Ashley Babbitt, and then 5 cops died of unrelated stuff.
Yeah, they really pad the stats with that particular one. But the body count from the Summer of Love is 25 plus.
Yeah.
So if we're going to, you don't have to say January 6th was, there was nothing that bad that happened that day at all to say, well, hold on a minute. Why are we promoting ideologies and events that were much more destructive? That's the only point that Del Rio is making. So yeah, if the Kaepernick promoters and the Pride Month people and the Black Lives Matter fans agree, if you guys want Del Rio to shut up, if we can all come back together and say, okay, football is football, not a political arena, and on that basis, we're going to discourage political grandstanding, great, let's agree on that. But of course, another standard they'll never agree to. It's only their politics. Anybody else's must be banned and punished. Destroy the standards and find conflict. This is yet another example in what was supposed to be a neutral entertainment environment for Americans, but of course isn't. And, rather than me trying to speak reason into these people, I know the correct answer is stop watching this nonsense. Stop participating in this nonsense. Submit to Blonde's point that football is gay and move on.
Finally.
The NFL itself says so. I can't. And they've got their pride flag to prove it. How can I argue?
We're going to be left with nothing at the end of this.
I know it sucks because it's like, well, what do you do? Do you rebuild everything? And at some point you have to start fighting for the institutions or you just have none. So yeah. I don't know.
You read old books. You watch old movies.
Get reacquainted with the classics.
Yeah.
Get a good candle and a good book and live like they would in the 1800s.
Exactly.
There was another interesting story out of the sports world this week. Out of Major League Baseball. Last Saturday night, the Tampa Bay Rays had Pride Night. So
why?
My voice just cracked like I'm 13 or something. Pride Night.
Ooh.
In which players were expected to wear a special pride flag patch on their jerseys and pride caps. And 5 Rays players refused and did not wear the patch, and they wore their team's normal caps. One player, Jason Adams, spoke on behalf of the group and said it was a faith-based decision for these particular players, not anything judgmental. He said, quote, I think a lot of guys have decided it's just a lifestyle that maybe not that they look down on anybody or think differently. It's just that maybe we don't want to encourage it if we believe in Jesus, who's encouraged us to live a lifestyle that would abstain from that behavior.
Easy peasy. Yeah. What's the problem here?
We just don't like, it's fine if you guys want to wear the pride stuff. We just want to play baseball. That's all they're saying. Not good enough. These guys are bigots. An ESPN commentator, Sarah Spain, said on Monday, that religious exemption BS is used in sports and otherwise also allows for people to be denied healthcare, jobs, apartments, children, prescriptions, all sorts of rights. You have a right to children now. That's kind of weird. We have to stop tiptoeing around it because we're trying to protect people who are trying to be bigoted from asking for them to be exempt from it when the very people that they are bigoted against are suffering the consequences. You say trying to be bigoted. That's somewhat confused language, but to simplify, if you don't actively celebrate the alphabet mafia or the gay KK or the gay Stapo, whatever your preferred term is,
I like that.
You're violating their rights if you don't wear the pride patch. That's what she's arguing.
Yeah, that's insane. It's not just bake the cake now. It's bake the cake, sit down, eat the whole cake. We're going to
choke on the cake. Yeah. We want to see the tears come out of your eyes.
This is so absurd. It's like people can't even, and this is another lesson, that we've learned this lesson in basically every story we've talked about today. We're not going to be left alone.
Yeah.
It's no longer an option. Retreating is not an option anymore because they're becoming increasingly confrontational just when we try to resist. So fine. You want to do this?
I agree. The dream and the goal is to be left alone, but it is pie in the sky fantasy to think that these people are going to do it. This is yet another perfect demonstration. And that was the argument that brought me on board with the rights that supposedly she's talking about, the right to be left alone and get married if you want to, whatever. But that was the deal. All right. I don't fully understand this gay stuff, but hey, you want to live your life in a way that doesn't affect others. You want to be left alone. That's fine. I'm on board. That's how I was sold all this stuff. Now the deal is no. You have to come to our wedding and clap. And if you don't, you're a bigot. Well, no, that's not you get left alone. That's you compel me to do things. You own me and you get to tell me what to do. That's what that means.
I think this is a positive development in our culture, though, because you can just live forever as a conservative if you're genuinely being left alone while leftists take the culture over. But if we're made to actively participate in stuff that we fundamentally disagree with, I think more people are going to be like, nah.
I hope so. I do get encouraged by all the best part about Pride Month is reading the comment sections, because you do remember that not everybody's completely insane, at least when the comment sections are opened. And not to tip off the upcoming surprise cringe, but there are elements of that theme. And so perhaps we'll talk about that more in a moment. But the last sort of exaggerated hate of the week that I wanted to discuss. I know you loved this story about...
I loved it so much.
The Washington Post and Dave Weigel and what's her face, the Felicia Sonmez, whatever. He made a sexist retweet. He got suspended and she went so crazy that she's fired now.
Pretty much. Although she was doing this for a long time. So what is her name? It sounds Mexican, but she looks white.
It's Felicia Sonmez.
Felicia Sonmez. She had been obsessively tweeting about like gender issues at the company and wage gap. It was like every leftist trope, just every single thing she had covered. And she was just constantly complaining about the work environment and sexism and everything like that. And then David Weigel retweeted this joke: every girl is bi, you just have to figure out if it's polar or sexual, which I think is kind of funny. And the thing about this is, like, did he not foresee that this was going to get him in major trouble?
It's hard for me to say. Like, to me, that joke is like not even that great. Like, it's a moment's chuckle. But to put yourself in the mind of a true believer, a true progressive, I could absolutely see why they're so upset about this.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. And then also, I'm sure this Weigel character has contributed to this culture at WAPO of canceling other people and everything like that. And I bet he's some irresponsible shitlib who has indefensible opinions. So do I care that this has happened to him? No, he got suspended for a month for this because Sonmez, tweeted about it. And she's like, look at what is happening at our company and gender, blah, blah, and my vagina and my autoimmune disease and blah, 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 blah. Fibromyalgia. And did
she actually reference fibromyalgia?
No, but I'm sure she has it. Don't you think? I guarantee this woman has a cat and fibromyalgia.
Fair speculation.
But what happened was people turned on her because the company is filled with woke leftists, and they were just mad about being put on blast for the company being dysfunctional on the eyes of the left. So they turned on her, and everybody got her fired. So she got fired. He got suspended for a month.
So I knew she ended up getting fired, but I didn't know it was because of internal mutiny against her.
Washington Post staffers said the chaos sparked by Twitter battles between Felicia Sonmez and other reporters over the suspension of Dave Weigel was a clusterfuck that had been made worse by her pouring gasoline on the fire and inviting other people to watch.
Interesting. Okay.
So this is so funny. I mean, and the other thing she was talking about, she said she was getting PTSD for having to read stories written by other WAPO staffers.
Okay.
And so one time she read some story that she found disturbing that was being published. And she's like, I need to take a walk around the block to think about this. And her editor was like, bitch, no, you have to work. And then she tweeted about how it was gender discrimination in the workplace. So everybody was really sick of this.
Well, and it seems like she was almost trying to troll her way into a lawsuit. And I didn't know this until earlier today, but she had a prior lawsuit.
Yeah.
So it's almost like she's trying to bait the so-called discrimination. And
the lawsuit was dismissed and she's trying to appeal it.
Oh, is she trying to appeal? I didn't see that, but she did. The lawsuit was dismissed in March of this year, and it was against the Washington Post and its editors alleging gender discrimination after she went public with an accusation of being a sexual assault victim. I'm not sure what the accusation was, if she was accusing the Washington Post or its staff or somebody else, but the judge said she had not demonstrated discriminatory motive when the editors chose to temporarily take her off stories related to sexual harassment or misconduct. So she made a public sexual assault claim. The editors at the Washington Post said, okay, maybe it's not wise to have you write about sexual assault in general, considering you are effectively an advocate and you claim to be a victim on this. So we'll just remove you from that topic. That's the Post says that's why they did that. Concerns that an advocate was covering an issue she experienced. She says that's gender discrimination. That got dismissed. But this is just hilarious because whatever the Post does, she's going to find a way to twist it. If they put her on sexual assault stories, she would say it's forced trauma.
Right? Exactly.
And if they take her off, well, then it's gender discrimination. You're not letting me do my job. You know that she's trolling and fishing for a lawsuit, and this stuff that happened with Dave Weigel and the rest, it seems like she was trying to bait a firing so she can again claim gender discrimination, especially if she has an appeal. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. If she has an appeal, perhaps that can be, I don't know if you can do that with a lawsuit. A lawyer could clarify. Can you add an amendment to the lawsuit or another exhibit?
No, I think it becomes a different lawsuit, doesn't it?
Okay. Is that how it works? You can't add in another thing on appeal? I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if she files a totally new lawsuit in response to this, because it seems like she's trying to find a way to cash out of the Washington Post. But the joke's on her because they gave all their money to Nick Sandmann, so they don't have any more to give out in lawsuits.